Craig is going to help us look at how we build a learning culture in our church councils. And welcome, Craig.
Thanks, Duncan. It's good to be here. When I did my doctoral research, I visited 21 churches around Australia that were seen to be effective, broadly speaking, in growing disciples in faith formation and education. And I studied them through interviews, and I came away with this way of thinking about the church as a learning community. Learning means growing. It doesn't mean going to school. It's the ways in which we grow. So what do people learn in the church? And I guess I want to boil it down to two things: that we learn about discipleship and we learn about mission. So we learn about, our learning is about growing in faith, and it's about being God's people in the world. So congregations that are growing in faith focus on those two ways of learning. So you'll see learning community there, which is the lens of thinking about a church as a group of people who are learning and growing in faith. Learning practices is about learning the practices of discipleship. So there's a focus on learning what disciples do. Learning mission means that we're a people who learn for mission, in mission, and from mission. I could talk a lot about each of these, but I'm just skating you through it. And the last one is the one we're touching on today, that a learning congregation has leaders who are learning. And that includes the minister and the church council and people in key leadership. And that means several things. And just to say it briefly, it means leaders who have a culture and who give time and attention, firstly, to growing as a team. Secondly, to growing in their relationship with God. Thirdly, in learning about leading, so learning about leadership. And fourthly, that they're actually learning about how to help the congregation be a learning community. That would take a bit more unpacking, that one. But so what we want to do today is I'm going to show you a bit of one of the interviews that I did, where a particular minister talks about learning with his church council. So I took several stories about this. The one that you're not going to see is the Queenscliff Point Lonsdale congregation, where every second church council meeting for them was not about business, it was about learning together. Every second church council meeting. And you'll go, well, how do they get the business done? Well, that's a story. But this one, so this is Reverend Ian Hickenbotham, who was at North Ringwood Uniting Church. And some of you'll know that, and some of you'll know Ian. And he talks about when he first came to North Ringwood, which is probably 15 years ago now. He's now retired. And he talks about the church council. So let's listen to that for about 4 minutes.
Remember when I first came, structure here was not healthy, was not functional. In that, I go to my first church council and they said, I will give you a time to speak. Now it's after about 11:15 p.m, they give me a time to speak. I thought, this is crazy. They were grinding through on doing micromanagement. That's what they were doing. So we had to shape that. And at second, I then said, right, our next church council, I'm taking you out. And I took them to the IMAX Theatre in Melbourne, and we watched Shackleton of the Antarctic as a study in leadership. Yeah. We watched it, I took them outside, we had coffees outside, and we sat around outside, and we had a conversation of what are the principles of leadership we've just witnessed, and we discussed it. And then I remember I picked up a stick, and in the gravel I drew a model. I drew a pyramid. right? With the congregation at the bottom and the presbytery and synod and assembly at the top. Okay? In the dirt. And they said, now, get up and walk around the other side. And that then inverted the pyramid. And the congregation was at the top, and presbytery and synod and assembly, which are the supports. And I said, we as leaders are supporting the congregation. We are not above them, telling them what to do. They're on the dance floor. Our job is to support. That's what a leader is. So that was my second church council here. Occasionally I've taken them out. I took them out one night to a theological lecture. Said, we shouldn't just meet to discuss stuff here in these four walls. We should go out. When I was in Melton, I had a mystery night for the elders one night. I hired a bus, took them into the city, took them up to the top of the Rialto, and we had our elders meeting in the observation deck of the Rialto Tower, right? And I said, now, look out. What do you see? Compare that with when you're on street level, what you saw there. I said, leaders have to go up and look out and see where the roads go and where the river runs. At that time, the casino was meeting in their older facilities there. I said, look at the car park there. It's full of people. Why are people flocking to the casino? That was our elders meeting that night, discussing these things. That's leadership. My role then is maybe creating some other opportunities to take people out of the four walls where they always think the same way, take them into a different environment where they'll think differently. I said, I want you to start to think as leaders. I said to them in the first instance, you have been elected, see, you are in positional leadership. But positional leadership doesn't actually mean much these days. I want to teach you about qualities of leadership, principles of leadership. And of course, I take them up to the top of Rialto. There's the illustration. Look down. That's what leaders do. And then we went out for supper after that. And it's a buzz. The talk was fantastic. The principles, they're seeing things now. It's connecting. And the drive home on the bus, I had them all on the bus together, not in separate cars. Yak, 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 yak. Terrific conversation.
So when I was chairing church council at church in Adelaide, they were rotating devotions, and frankly, it just felt like you had to have a turn. You had to think of something. Like it just wasn't that great. It was kind of let's fill in the first 5 minutes, and I basically said, we're going to take 20 minutes. We're going to make this. We're going to learn about something, and then we're going to pray. So we're actually going to have a block of time each time where you're introduced to some thought, idea, model, whatever it is, and our prayer will come out of that. So I actually took it back so that we could not just have a token thing to start, but focus on something. And there's more than ways to do it, but I'd encourage people to not do a token devotional thing.
Yeah, I was just thinking something I've done that worked really well was me as the minister taking responsibility, but sharing it with different people every time. So then you get all the voices, but you don't give it to somebody to wrestle with on their own and try to find time. And you can then also connect it with the themes and the topics that you're discussing or that are playing out in the congregation or in the world, and I think then you can get different flavors from different people, but at the same time you can help each other to really provide quality, and it became something that people were looking forward to.
I want to say thank you to Craig. I think you've jumped on something really important for me here, that the church, I think, in the community has an image of being passive, certainly caring and gentle maybe, but to be energetic and arguing and engaging in life is something that I think we need to have for all of our churches, to sort of stir up the congregation and as church council, and hopefully then into the world in a more energetic way.
I think one thing we heard from Ian was a kind of a catalyst thing. You know, he did things with his council that provoked something. So, you know, stirred people up a bit, made them think differently, gave them a new experience, took them to a new location, not just sitting around a table, you know, same table every month, going through the same stuff. So there's something there about variety of experience, I think, Vivian, that combines with real life. You know, I think, and Ian's thing of, I wanted to get them outside the walls of the church to think about the world. I think, you know, it's a great example of the ways he did that.
Yeah. Okay. Are we ready for some conversation around being a learning community as church councils? Have you got any stories about what you've done to learn as a church council? What are the things that you think that this might spark for you in your conversation?